The movie starts with a little girl, Naveen, trying to whistle with her hands as her parents look on from afar as they discuss a long mission that her dad Mills will be on to get extra money for treatment for Naveen. Alia, Naveen's mom, thinks it's not good to tell her lies about the 2-year-long mission. Mills eventually goes over to Naveen because she was coughing, and he shows her what to do to make the sound come out. She feels frustrated, but he guides her, and she finally gets it, and they both get excited about it. He hugs her tight, but she already knows that he is leaving, and it is because of her. After some time, the ship is now in space and runs into an asteroid field. As the rocks start hitting the ship's control AI mentions something about the unexpected asteroid field being in the way of their destination. The passengers seem fine, but Mills wakes up due to the banging outside. He rushes to the cockpit and takes manual control of the ship. The rocks come in thick and fast, requiring an emergency landing, and Mills goes down to the nearest planet, but the asteroids destroy the cryo chambers and make the ship break apart into two. Mills lands the ship on the ground roughly and wakes up in a daze. He has an injury to his side that makes him take out the metal piece inside. He gets the spacesuit on as the AI tells him that the cryo chambers have failed and everyone is dead. He has to go outside, but he hears something. He grabs a gun and opens the door, slowly heading outside, and it turns out that he's in a forest. He falls into the swampy water, and as he walks around, something appears behind him that he can't find. He feels anxious as he looks around, finding his crewmates dead in the water. He starts to lose his breath and goes back inside the ship. The AI shows him that the second part of the ship went down somewhere else. He radios out an emergency broadcast, hoping someone from his home planet would hear him. He checks out his ship, which is heavily damaged, and manages to also learn that the atmosphere is breathable on the planet. But he also sends out a message that he is the only one left, so there is no need to risk more people for just one man. He points the gun to himself, trying to end his life, but when he is reminded of his daughter, he stops and takes a breath. Mills lays in his seat, looking at a video of his daughter when he gets a ping. He goes back out in the rain to see what it is, and it's the dying pod of a cryo chamber of a child, and she's still alive, so he shoots off the lock to get her out of the pod. Mills is carrying the little girl to his ship when he spots a large footprint in the mud. It turns out this is Earth, and 65 million years ago, Mills is now in his ship with the little girl sleeping on his bed. He gets up and walks out thinking she's asleep, but she's actually not. He is still looking for the second part of the ship that has the escape vessel. He goes out to explore and look for his vessel, but steps in on the skeleton of a giant animal. He gets startled by a geyser that shoots up into the air next to him. That's when he gets an idea. He uses his small computer to find the vessel and finds it. It is just 15 kilometers away, but he gets jumped by a small animal. He wrestles with it until he grabs his gun and beats it to death. Mills is now nervous. He slowly goes through the forest because he sees something moving in the bushes. He then finds the little girl who runs away from him, and he ends up in chase trying to get her, making them both fall next to a dead animal that was food for a big T-Rex. They're both back on the ship, and he gives her some food and tries to talk to her while taking care of her wounds. Her name is Koa, and he tells her the story of how their ship crashed during the trip. He keeps talking, but she has a confused look on her face. He thinks something dangerous is out there, but then he realizes that they're not speaking the same language. So he gets an idea and uses some powder to tell her that they need to climb the mountain and get to the vessel so they can escape and get home. But she is concerned about her family, and Mills doesn't have the heart to tell her that they're all gone. So he tells her they're also on top of the mountain waiting for her. Mills records finding Koa and about her status. Her parents are both dead, so he has to take her to the escape vessel and bring her home. Koa is watching videos of Naveen that she sent to Mills talking about the days she's been having, like her in the hospital, and missing Mills making her cry. As Koa continues watching, Mills comes over to shut it off and they go packing for weapons. Outside, they keep walking into the woods with Mills being very vigilant. They're now 12 kilometers away from the vessel, and they keep climbing. And when Koa looks up, she sees a bright asteroid next to the moon. The journey doesn't stop while she picks some berries and throws them at Mills. That's when he takes them and finds out they're poisonous. As they make their way deeper into the forest, Mills uses his dirty hand to scare Koa, and they play around until she sees a stuck animal and helps it, despite Mills telling her not to. But it quickly gets eaten by predators, and Mills had to hold her to keep her quiet until the predators ran off. Later on, the mood is bleak, but they are still climbing the mountain. They get to a waterfall and clean up, and Mills hides his wound from her. They drink some water, as she tries to learn his language, and he teaches her some words like flower, which she eventually puts in his hair. He checks to see the distance and manages to fall off the branch and hit hard as he comes down, dislocating his shoulder, so he had to hit it against a tree to put it back inside. But there are other predators in front of them. They get closer, so Mills gets the gun and makes Koa stomp on his hand to get it in and shoots them all down. Koa runs away and hides as he throws grenades. But there are flying dinosaurs behind Koa, so she slowly creeps away from them. But the predators have followed her there too. They almost get to her, but Mills gets there just in time. Koa is now terrified and shaken, but Mills has to calm her down so they can keep going. But he ends up staying with her as the night comes. He eventually gets her on his back, and they make it to a cave with some water. He sets up a campsite, and now they can sleep. But before that, he plays a hologram of Naveen as he prepares to sleep. He remembers that Naveen has died now because of her illness. That night, Mills hears something and gets up to check, and wakes Koa up too so they can get out of there, and that's when he realizes that she's eaten the poison berries. So he gets the parasite out of her mouth and wakes her up, and they hear something coming from the wall but didn't notice the giant T-Rex behind them. When they turn around, it has gotten its head inside the cave, but when it tries to bite, Mills shoots it and they go deeper into the cave to escape. They get to a quieter place, but they have to look for a way out of it. Mills finds a small crevice, but he is too big to fit inside it, so Koa volunteers herself, but in their argument, he tells her that her parents are dead, but she doesn't understand. That's when he gets an idea and uses a small grenade to blow the hole and make it bigger. There is now enough room for her to go through, so she gets the grenades and goes inside the tunnel, and he follows her, but the ground starts to shake and it blocks her inside and pushes him out. The next day, Koa made it out on the other side. Mills is still inside the cave, nervous, pointing his gun at something. That's when a dinosaur appears behind him, and he has to now fight for his life in the small cave to escape, and he ends up shooting it. Koa is out in the forest by herself, and she doesn't know where to go, so she gets herself a weapon and soaks it in poison. Mills is now outside and sees the large asteroid and scans it. It's headed right for them, and they need to escape before it gets there. Mills goes through the forest looking for Koa, and she's hidden in the bushes, but when it jumps behind her, she decides to run. Mills hears her screaming and runs towards it. She is running away from the predator and uses her grenades to blow it up. She hears him screaming as he is sinking in quicksand. Koa gets there in time and puts a branch into the quicksand to get him out of there, saving his life. That night, they get to a cliff and he gives her a rope and she climbs it. He gets real nervous, but she quickly sends the rope down and he climbs it to the top. They've made it to the escape vessel now and make their way inside. Mills gets into the cockpit and learns that there is a rescue ship coming to get them, and everything seems to be working just fine. Koa goes looking for her parents and learns the truth of their death, and she is heartbroken. That's when they see asteroids shooting down. He then tells her about losing his daughter too, and now he needs to get her home, and they share a warm hug. The asteroid is getting very close now, getting to the moon, so they need to get going. He puts her seatbelt on her, and as they get the ship ready, an asteroid hits the ship, sending the escape vessel tumbling down the hill with them inside it, holding on for dear life. As the asteroids keep coming, Koa wakes up upside down. She tries to get Mills to wake up, but he is passed out. He then wakes up, but the T-Rex has found them and is banging against the vessel and trying to get to them. Mills sees his gun outside as the T-Rex gets ready to charge, so he undoes his seatbelt and falls down. The T-Rex doesn't see him when he gets to the gun, but he is out of charge. T-Rex turns around and is now headed right for him. Mills thinks he's hidden, but T-Rex breaks the roof and tries to bite him. When Koa looks outside, she sees that there are two T-Rexes looking to get to Mills. She now knows she needs to get out. She uses a hologram of Naveen to get the attention of the T-Rexes who try to bite the hologram. Mills then gets the chance to shoot one of them down, and the other sees Koa inside the ship and heads straight for her. It knocks the ship down, but Mills shoots at it and gets it away from the vessel and keeps shooting it until it collapses and the charge ends on the gun. The vessel starts to repair itself too, and now they can get going. But it's not over. The other T-Rex was never dead, only blinded. Mills tells her to launch the ship as he gets chased by the T-Rex. He runs through the forest until he breaks his ankle, and that's when he sees the geysers. He heads straight for them, and the T-Rex follows until he tricks the T-Rex into getting hit by the geyser. But that didn't affect it, and that's when Koa comes running with her spear and stabs it in the other eye, making it blind and fall into a big geyser. She has now saved Mills twice. As the movie ends, the asteroid is very close, so she carries Mills to the ship, and they take off, saving each other from the deadly Earth and the asteroid. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.